What did true love look like in a world of castles and knights? Did it feel like to swear your heart to someone when duels and daring quests were part of the daily grind? Let's journey back to the Age of Chivalry, roughly from the 11th to the 15th centuries, and uncover the passionate, often perilous ways medieval hearts showed their devotion. Number 10. The Grand Tournament Joust for a Lady's Favor. The sun beat down on the tournament field, glinting off polished steel and embroidered silk, thousands of eyes fixed on the lists, the long roped-off arena where knights faced their greatest challenges. A hush fell over the assembled lords and ladies. The common folk pressed against the wooden barriers and the trumpets blared. At the heart of it all stood a knight, Sir Kaelen of the Blackwood, his armor gleaming, his helm closed, ready to face his opponent. But his eyes, or rather his very soul, was focused on one particular spot in the stands, the pavilion adorned with the colors of Lady Isolde. She sat poised a ribbon, the exact shade of her azure gown tied to her wrist, waiting. This was not just a display of martial prowess. It was a testament, a declaration carved in splintered wood and ringing steel, all for her favor. The tradition of jousting for a lady's favor was more than a mere sport. It was a high-stakes performance of devotion. A knight would choose a lady often, one he admired from afar, or a mistress of his heart, in the courtly love tradition, and dedicate his performance in the joust to her. Her favor. A ribbon, a scarf, a sleeve, or even a single flower would be worn on his helm or lance, a visible symbol of his inspiration. Sir Kaelen had worn Isolde's azure ribbon for weeks, a quiet promise. But this tournament's the King's Jubilee was the moment to make that promise roar. He saw her now, a delicate hand resting lightly on the velvet cushion of her seat, her gaze unwavering. Every tilt of his lance, every thunderous charge was a message. Only she truly understood. The first joust began. Sir Kaelen faced Sir Gawain, a formidable knight known for his unbreakable seat and powerful thrust. The crowd murmured as the herald announced their names. Both knights took their positions at opposite ends of the lists, lances lowered, horses pawing the ground. Sir Kaelen felt the weight of his armor, the thrum of his horse's anticipation, and the immense pressure of Isolde's presence. He took a deep breath. His mind raced, not about the danger, but about the perfection of his strike, the clean break of the lance upon his opponent's shield, the roar of the crowd all reflecting glory onto her. When the marshal's horn sounded, the ground trembled as both knights spurred their steeds forward. A blur of speed and steel, the impact was deafening. A crakelin's lance met Gawain's shield, knocking him sideways, but Gawain held his seat. Kaelin's own lance, however, snapped clean. The crowd erupted, a mix of gasps and cheers. No fall, but a broken lance meant a point for Sir Kaelen. They regrouped for the next pass. The tension was palpable. Lady Isolde's maidens leaned forward, their faces etched with concern, but Isolde herself remained calm, her eyes fixed on Kaelen. He could feel her gaze, a tangible force that pushed him forward. This time, Sir Kaelen adjusted his grip, focusing his entire will on the moment of impact. The horses charged again, their hooves pounding, the earth closing the distance in a terrifying rush. Lance met shield with a resounding clang, and Sir Gawain's horse stumbled. Nearly unseating him, Sir Kaelen's lance held, but it bent under the force. Another point. The score was now 2-0. One more pass was the most crucial. The knights took a moment to breathe the noise of the crowd. A distant hum. Sir Kaelen wiped a bead of sweat from his brow beneath his helm. He thought of Isolde, of her quiet grace, her intelligent eyes, the rare smile that lit up her face. This was for her. Every aching muscle, every pounding heartbeat pictured her face, and a surge of determination flowed through him. The horn blasted once more. The charge was even more furious than before. Sir Kaelen aimed his lance with pinpoint precision, hitting Sir Gawain's shield directly in the center. The force was immense. Sir Gawain's horse reared, and he himself was lifted clear out of his saddle, tumbling to the ground with a heavy clang of armor. The crowd roared, a wave of sound crashing over the lists. Victory! Sir Kaelen reined in his horse, raising his unbroken lance in triumph. The marshals rushed to assist Sir Gawain, who, though shaken, was unharmed. Sir Kaelen, his chest heaving slowly, rode towards the royal pavilion. As he approached Lady Isolde's box, he tilted his lance, lowering it in a salute. She rose, a rare radiant smile gracing her lips, and removed the azure ribbon from her wrist. With a graceful motion, she tossed it down to him. It fluttered in the breeze, a ribbon of pure azure, and landed softly on the ground near his horse's hooves. Sir Kaelen dismounted, retrieving it carefully, as if it were spun from starlight. He then took a knee, pressing the ribbon to his lips before tucking it safely into his gauntlet. This public acknowledgement, this simple gesture of throwing a ribbon, spoke volumes in the chivalric world. It was a visible sign that his devotion was acknowledged, his skill admired, and his heart understood. The joust was over, but the silent language of devotion, displayed for all to see, had just deepened its intricate weave. Number 9. Bearing a lady's colors or livery. Beyond the intimate token, a knight often displayed his devotion on a grander scale by wearing a lady's colors or incorporating her heraldic devices into his own. This was a very public declaration, a visual shout across a crowded field or a bustling court. It wasn't just a simple ribbon. It could be a full change of personal colors on his shield, his surcoat, his horse's caparison, or even the uniforms of his personal retinue. Sir Guy de Montaigne, a knight of considerable renown, once arrived at a royal gathering with his entire retinue dressed in deep crimson and silver, the exact colors of Lady Elara, Duchess of Valois. His banner, usually bearing his family's lion rampant, now incorporated a silver falcon, Lady Elara's personal emblem, soaring across a crimson field. This was a statement that left no doubt about his allegiance, his admiration, and his unspoken plea for her favor. The choice of colors and symbols was never arbitrary. Each hue, each animal, each device held specific meaning in the complex language of heraldry. Crimson often symbolized courage, passion, or devotion. The falcon, known for its swiftness and nobility, was a common choice for ladies of high standing. By adopting these, Sir Guy was not only visually aligning himself with Lady Elara, but also subtly acknowledging her virtues and making them his own. His armor, usually burnished plain steel, now featured crimson enameling on the edges, and a silver falcon was emblazoned on his shield, carefully painted over his own traditional crest. His squires, normally clad in his family's drab brown and green, were resplendent in crimson tunics with silver trim. Even the plumes on his warhorse's headstall were crimson and silver. This grand display was particularly effective during major events, like royal entries into cities, state visits, or large ceremonial gatherings. When a lord or knight rode in procession, his livery was a direct reflection of his status, his alliances, and in this case, his romantic aspirations. As Sir Guy rode through the cobbled streets, the trumpets blaring, the crowd cheering, every eye in the procession would have noted the striking change in his colors. There would be whispers, knowing glances, and perhaps even a few excited giggles from the younger ladies. The message was clear. Sir Guy was publicly, proudly, and undeniably serving Lady Elara. He was putting his reputation, his status, and his very visual identity on the line for her. The impact of such a gesture was multifaceted. For the lady herself, it was a profound honor. It elevated her status, showed her influence, and broadcasted her desirability. For Lady Elara, seeing Sir Guy's entire retinue arrayed in her colors would have been a public affirmation of her standing, and a very visible compliment. It implied that her presence, her favor, was so significant that a powerful knight would dedicate his visual representation to her. It also put pressure on her. How would she respond to such a grand, unmistakable declaration? A public acknowledgement, a subtle smile, or perhaps a slight blush would be enough to fan the flames of courtly speculation. For other knights and members of the court, it was a clear signal of romantic intent, or at least profound admiration within the framework of courtly love. Could spark rivalries, inspire similar gestures from other suitors, or establish a perceived claim over the lady's affections. Sometimes a knight might even adopt a lady's colors as a challenge to another suitor asserting his superior devotion through a visual contest. Sir Guy knew this. He was not just making a statement to Lady Elara. He was making a statement to the entire court, subtly implying that his devotion was unparalleled. He was willing to publicly align himself with her, risking the mockery of rivals or the disapproval of those who might find such displays excessive. Custom stretched across different regions of medieval Europe. In France, during the time of Eleanor of Aquitaine, the display of a lady's livery became a sophisticated art form. Troubadours would sing of knights who spent fortunes on silks and dyes to perfectly match their chosen lady's hues. In England, Edward III's court saw numerous instances of knights adopting the colors and motifs of their favored ladies, often in the run-up to a major tournament or a significant feast. It was a way of weaving personal romance into the very fabric of courtly life, making it a visible, tangible part of the social landscape. Sir Guy's crimson and silver remained a talking point. For weeks, a silent narrative of chivalric devotion, unfolding in plain sight, a grand testament to the power of a lady's inspiration. His bold display of Lady Elara's colors ensured that her name and his devotion remained on the lips of courtiers long after the Jubilee festivities had ended. Number 8. Performing acts of service and devotion. In the complex tapestry of courtly love service, went far beyond opening a door or fetching a goblet. It was a profound, often lifelong commitment to a lady's welfare, reputation, and desires. A knight pledged his service to his chosen lady, becoming her humble servant in a purely platonic yet deeply devoted sense. This meant placing her needs and wishes above his own, acting as her champion, her protector, her confidant, and her most ardent supporter in all matters, both great and small. It was a gesture of continuous, unwavering commitment. A silent promise woven into the daily rhythm of court life. Sir Reynold, a knight known for his quiet demeanor but formidable loyalty, demonstrated this devotion in 1,000 subtle ways to Lady Annalise. Lady Annalise faced a challenge. Her ancestral lands, though rich, were distant and vulnerable to incursions from a neighboring lord. While her own family had loyal retainers, the threat was escalating. Sir Reynold, without being asked, quietly began to spend more time near her estates. He oversaw the training of her militia, advised her steward on improving defenses, and even personally led patrols along her borders, often at great personal risk. He would appear seemingly out of nowhere when a new threat emerged. His presence, a silent shield. This was not about grand battles fought in her name, but about sustained, practical protection, a constant vigilance that eased her anxieties and secured her future. He was serving her in the most fundamental way, ensuring her safety and prosperity, not for personal gain, but purely out of his devotion. Beyond protection, acts of service extended to the social sphere. A lady's reputation was paramount, and slander could be as damaging as any siege. When malicious rumors began to circulate about Lady Annalise's management of her dowry, implying imprudence or even corruption, Sir Reynold took swift action. He did not engage in public shouting matches or duels, though he was prepared to if necessary. Instead, he systematically gathered facts, interviewed witnesses, and discreetly presented irrefutable evidence to key figures at court, carefully disproving each accusation. He navigated the treacherous currents of court politics with quiet determination, his only goal to restore her honor. His efforts were tireless, his arguments precise, and his demeanor unwavering. He did not seek credit for his work, preferring to let the truth speak for itself, and Lady Annalise's reputation shine untarnished. The service could also involve personal sacrifice. Lady Annalise had a rare and delicate plant, a gift from her late mother, that struggled in the castle's climate. Sir Reynold, learning of her concern, undertook a long and arduous journey to a distant monastery known for its botanical gardens. He spent weeks there, studying the plant's needs, learning its specific cultivation techniques, and even securing a rare grafting of the same species. He returned, exhausted but triumphant, presenting the healthy young plant to Lady Annalise with a simple bow. This was not a grand quest to slay a dragon, but a patient, dedicated effort to fulfill a small personal desire, demonstrating a deep understanding of her quiet joys and sorrows. Even in daily court life, Sir Reynold's service was evident. He ensured Lady Annalise had the best seats at feasts, that her requests were swiftly attended to by servants, and that she was never left vulnerable to unwanted attentions. He would quietly clear a path for her through a crowded hall, retrieve a dropped glove without being asked, or simply stand by her side, a silent presence of support and protection. He was her steadfast anchor in a world of shifting alliances and fickle fortunes. These acts were not performed for praise or reward. They were expressions of pure, unadulterated service, a core tenet of chivalric love. Their relationship was built on a foundation of respect and a selfless desire to uplift and support the lady in every conceivable way, without demanding anything in return. Lady Annalise, through subtle gestures and quiet acknowledgments, understood the depth of Sir Reynold's commitment, a bond forged not in passion but in unwavering, steadfast service. Number 7. The symbolic exchange of gifts. Medieval romance was often conveyed through a rich language of symbols, and gifts were no exception. A gift between a knight and his lady was rarely just an item. It was imbued with layers of meaning, a silent message exchanged between hearts. These gifts were often discreet, personal, and profoundly significant, chosen not for their monetary value alone, but for what they represented. Sir Gareth, known for his prowess on the battlefield, often found himself tongue-tied in the presence of Lady Eleanor, whose wit sparkled like the morning dew. Words failed him, but symbols did not. He sought to convey his earnest, unwavering devotion through carefully chosen objects. One of the most common symbolic gifts was a ring, not necessarily for betrothal, but as a token of remembrance and constancy. Sir Gareth commissioned a delicate silver ring for Lady Eleanor, intricately engraved with a knot, symbolizing unbreakable bonds and eternal devotion. He had it delivered to her, discreetly tucked into a volume of poetry he knew she admired, a silent message among the verses. Eleanor, understanding the unspoken meaning, would wear the ring on a chain around her neck, close to her heart, a private acknowledgement of his sentiment. The act of wearing it was her silent reciprocation, a subtle sign visible only to those who knew its secret. Another profound gift could be a piece of embroidery or a meticulously crafted garment. Ladies, skilled in needlework, often presented knights with embroidered sleeves, scarves, or even banners, incorporating their personal heraldry or a secret motif. A knight, in turn, might commission a jewel or a finely worked belt buckle featuring a design that referenced a shared moment or private understanding. Sir Gareth once presented Lady Eleanor with a brooch shaped like a rose, its petals crafted from delicate gold wire, and at its center a single pearl. The rose, a universal symbol of love and beauty, combined with the pearl representing purity and rarity, spoke volumes of his admiration for her. Eleanor received it with a quiet smile, understanding the depth of the sentiment, without a single word being exchanged. Objects associated with the hunter falconry also held special significance. A knight might present a lady with a magnificent hunting falcon, carefully trained and adorned with bells bearing her colors. This gift, beyond its practical use, symbolized his desire for her to soar, her independence and her mastery. Conversely, A lady might give a knight a carefully crafted bowstring, or a beautifully fletched arrow, signifying her trust in his skill and his ability to protect. Sir Gareth, having once shared a particularly successful deer hunt with Lady Eleanor, later sent her a small, exquisitely carved horn used for signaling. It was not a grand piece of jewelry, but it evoked a shared memory, a bond forged in the wild and a quiet understanding of their mutual respect. Sometimes the gift was not an object, but something more ethereal, yet equally meaningful. A knight might commission a troubadour to compose a song or a poem specifically in praise of his lady, its lyrics veiled enough to be universally appreciated, yet specific enough for her to recognize its true inspiration. He would then ensure she was present when the troubadour performed it, allowing the music and words to convey what his own voice struggled to articulate. Sir Gareth, through a trusted friend, once arranged for a minstrel to perform a ballad at a courtly gathering, a song about a knight who sought the purest flower for his noble lady. Lady Eleanor, listening intently, recognized lines that subtly referenced their shared love of ancient lore and the quiet strength she possessed. Performance was a public yet personal dedication, a gift of art and sentiment that transcended mere words. The exchange of these symbolic gifts served as a powerful language of devotion in a world where open declarations of love were often restricted by social norms and the conventions of courtly love. Each object, from a simple ribbon to a precious gem, became a repository of unspoken feelings, a tangible connection between two hearts. They were silent witnesses to a budding romance, discreet reminders of affection, and lasting testaments to a love that lived in the realm of hints and subtle gestures, cherished precisely because of their hidden depths. Sir Gareth knew that the true value of these gifts lay not in their material worth, but in the heart and intention behind them, a silent dialogue understood only by the recipient. Number 6. Sending secret love letters or emissaries. In an age of strict social protocols, watchful eyes, and often arranged marriages, direct and open communication between a knight and his beloved was a perilous affair. The art of the secret love letter and the discreet emissary became crucial tools for nurturing affection, exchanging confidences, and maintaining a connection that could not be openly acknowledged. These were not mere notes. They were carefully crafted works, often coded, always delivered with the utmost secrecy and risk. Sir Tristan, whose renown spread throughout Brittany, often found himself separated from the object of his affection, Lady Isolde, by vast distances and formidable obstacles. Their only recourse was the clandestine message. A love letter, in the age of chivalry, was a masterpiece of hidden meaning. It had to be passionate enough to convey true feeling, yet ambiguous enough to be dismissed as a courtly pleasantry if intercepted. Poets and scholars were sometimes enlisted to help compose these delicate missives, using metaphors, allegories, and classical references to veil their true intent. Parchment would be of the finest quality, the ink carefully chosen, and the seal discreet. Sir Tristan, renowned for his poetic sensibilities, would spend hours crafting his letters to Lady Isolde. He would use metaphors of hunting, sailing, or mythical beasts subtly, referencing their shared experiences or private jokes that only she would understand. He might speak of the North Star guiding my lonely vessel when referring to her, or the elusive stag whose pursuit fills my heart with joy. To describe his devotion, the delivery of such a letter was a dangerous game. Instead, a trusted squire, a loyal maid, or even a sympathetic minstrel would serve as an emissary. These individuals were privy to the secret and understood the immense risks involved: imprisonment, disfigurement, or even death if the letter fell into the wrong hands, especially if the lady was married or if the relationship was deemed scandalous. The emissary had to be cunning, resourceful, and utterly devoted to both the sender and the recipient. Sir Tristan relied heavily on his loyal squire, young Bedwyr, who possessed an uncanny knack for blending into the shadows. Bedwyr would travel for days, sometimes weeks, through hostile territories, often posing as a merchant or a wandering scholar, the precious letter hidden within the lining of his cloak or sewn into the sole of his boot. Upon arrival, the emissary would have to find a private moment to deliver the letter away from prying eyes and watchful chaperons. This might involve slipping it under a door late at night, passing it during a crowded feast, or even concealing it within a seemingly innocent package of goods. Lady Isolde, living in a court far from Tristan's, had her own network of trusted maids who would help receive and decipher the letters. They would often have a predetermined signal, a specific flower placed in a window, a particular tune played on a lute to indicate the letter's arrival and the safety of its delivery. The anticipation of receiving a letter was immense, a lifeline of connection across the distance. The response was equally challenging. Lady Isolde would write her reply with the same caution and poetic finesse. She might write of the spring rains that nourished the land to express her longing, or the distant mountains forever steadfast to assure him of her constancy. Her letters would then be entrusted to Bedwyr for the perilous journey back. The entire process could take weeks or even months, but the rarity and danger of the exchange made each letter profoundly valuable, each word cherished. These secret communications became the lifeblood of their romance, a testament to their enduring affection in a world that sought to keep them apart. Beyond letters, emissaries could also convey verbal messages, often memorized and recited to ensure no physical evidence existed. A knight might send a trusted friend to convey a complex sentiment, a declaration of loyalty, or a request for a meeting, all expressed through a series of coded phrases or private jokes. This method reduced the risk of written evidence but required immense trust in the emissary's memory and discretion. Sir Tristan often combined both methods, sending a letter with a coded verbal message to be delivered only if the letter was successfully read. The secrecy, the risk, and the profound personal nature of these communications forged an intense bond, proving that love would find a way even through the most perilous of circumstances. The thrill of the forbidden, combined with the genuine longing, made each clandestine message a potent symbol of enduring affection in the Age of Chivalry. Number 5. Defending a lady's honor and reputation. A lady's honor in the Age of Chivalry was as fragile and precious as spun glass, and any perceived stain could shatter her standing and future. A knight's devotion often meant more than just fighting for her in a tournament. It meant fiercely defending her good name against slander, gossip, or any accusation that threatened her reputation. This was a grave responsibility, often leading to public challenges, verbal duels, or even physical combat. Sir Lancelot, known for his peerless prowess, also possessed an unwavering commitment to the honor of Queen Guinevere, a commitment that frequently put him at odds with envious courtiers and malicious tongues. Rumors like wildfire spread quickly through medieval courts. A whisper about a lady's conduct, her lineage, or her virtue could destroy her. When an envious Lord Baron Mortimer began to subtly imply that Queen Guinevere had acted improperly during a hunt, suggesting she had strayed from the designated path to meet someone secretly, Sir Lancelot's ears burned. Though the words were veiled, their intent was clear. To cast doubt on her integrity, Sir Lancelot did not wait for the rumors to fester. He approached Baron Mortimer in the Great Hall, in full view of numerous courtiers. His voice, usually calm, carried a dangerous edge as he stated clearly and unequivocally that any man who dared to question the Queen's honor was a liar and a coward. This was a direct verbal challenge, a gauntlet thrown with words instead of steel. Baron Mortimer, taken aback by Lancelot's ferocity, at first stammered denials, but Lancelot pressed him, demanding a retraction or a formal challenge to prove the Baron's claims. The tension in the hall was immense. Such a public confrontation could escalate into a duel to the death. The truth was less important than the honor at stake. Lancelot stood ready to defend the queen's reputation with his life. The Baron, realizing the precariousness of his position against such a formidable and righteous opponent, eventually backed down, offering a reluctant apology and withdrawing his insinuations. Lancelot's swift and resolute defense had preserved Queen Guinevere's honor, but a willingness to fight was clear. Physical defense of a lady's honor was also common. In a world where violence was often a first resort, a knight might need to physically protect his lady from insult or assault. If a lady was publicly slighted, jostled rudely, or worse, physically threatened, her devoted knight would immediately step forward. A famous instance involved Knight Sir Percival, who witnessed a ruffian attempting to snatch a ring from the hand of a noblewoman, Lady Isolde of the Fens, in a crowded market. Without hesitation, Sir Percival drew his sword, a flash of steel, and quickly subdued the aggressor, ensuring the lady's safety and the return of her property. His actions were swift, decisive, and unwavering, a testament to his chivalric duty and his personal devotion. The most formal defense of honor often involved a trial by combat. If an accusation against a lady was serious enough and could not be resolved by other means, a knight might volunteer to fight on her behalf, acting as her champion. This was seen as appealing to divine judgment. God, it was believed, would grant victory to the righteous party. Such a trial was a solemn and perilous affair, often fought to the death. While rarely employed for mere gossip, it was the ultimate demonstration of a knight's faith in his lady's innocence and his unwavering willingness to die for her honor. The knight put his own life on the line, not just his reputation, but his very existence to clear her name. The willingness to defend a lady's honor, whether through sharp words, a physical intervention, or a deadly combat, was a cornerstone of chivalric devotion. It showed that the knight valued her standing, her reputation, and her very well-being above his own comfort or safety. It was a declaration that her honor was his honor, and he would permit no one to tarnish it. This fierce protectiveness, coupled with unwavering loyalty, painted a vivid picture of the profound bonds that could exist between a knight and his chosen lady in the Age of Chivalry, a bond where her dignity was fiercely guarded. Number 4. Undertaking a perilous quest for a beloved. The very essence of chivalry often found its grandest expression in the quest. For a knight deeply devoted to a lady, undertaking a perilous journey or a seemingly impossible task became the ultimate testament to his love. These quests were not for personal glory or territorial gain, but specifically for the lady's sake, her honor, or her impossible desire. The greater the danger, the more remote the chance of success, the more profound the gesture. Sir Gawain, for example, once undertook a quest to retrieve a legendary lost relic, not for its power, but because its absence brought a profound melancholy to Lady Ragnell, his lady love. Lady Ragnell, though wise and kind, carried a heavy heart due to a curse that afflicted her family's ancient line. The only rumored cure lay in a forgotten temple, deep within the treacherous, enchanted forest, guarded by mythical beasts and riddles that befuddled the wisest scholars. Within this temple, it was said, lay a crystal teardrop, the tear of Lyra, which could break ancient enchantments. Sir Gawain heard of her quiet sorrow and the faint hope attached to this legend. Without hesitation, he swore an oath before his peers that he would seek the tear not for any personal gain, but solely to alleviate her suffering. His pledge was a public declaration of his intent to face any peril for her happiness. The journey itself was a chronicle of hardship. Sir Gawain rode for weeks, navigating dense, sunless woods where strange whispers drifted on the wind. He faced trials of courage, confronting monstrous wolves and shadowy figures that tested his resolve. One legend tells of a river guarded by a monstrous serpent. Sir Gawain, instead of resorting to brute force, used his keen intellect and unwavering spirit to solve a riddle posed by the beast, thus earning safe passage. Each step, each challenge overcome, was a meditation on Lady Ragnell, her face inspiring him through the darkest nights and the most desperate moments. carried a small embroidered handkerchief from her, a constant reminder of his purpose. He encountered hermitages where he sought guidance, and lonely clearings where he had to fight off bandits who sought to strip him of his armor and resolve, crossed mountains where the air was thin and the footing treacherous, enduring bitter cold and the gnawing pangs of hunger, yet his commitment never wavered. The thought of Lady Ragnell's smile, free from the shadow of the curse, fueled his every effort. Quest was a physical manifestation of his inner fortitude and his boundless dedication. He was literally putting his life on the line for her peace of mind, demonstrating a love that transcended the superficial and embraced profound sacrifice. Finally, after months of relentless travel and countless dangers, he reached the forgotten temple. It was crumbling, overgrown with vines, its entrance obscured by ancient traps and more riddles. Inside, the air was heavy with forgotten magic. He navigated collapsing corridors, deciphered cryptic inscriptions, and avoided ingenious pitfalls, his armor scratched and dented, his body weary. He faced a final guardian, a magical illusion that tested his courage and his purest intention. He persevered, his mind focused on Lady Ragnell, and eventually he found it. A small, crystalline teardrop pulsating with a faint, ethereal light, resting on a moss-covered pedestal. The journey back was almost as dangerous as he had to guard his precious find. When Sir Gawain finally returned to court, months after his departure, he was gaunt, his armor marred, but his eyes shone with a quiet triumph. He knelt before Lady Ragnell, presented the tear of Elara on a velvet cushion, and recounted his quest with humble brevity, omitting many of the terrors he had faced. Lady Ragnell, tears streaming down her face, touched the crystal, and a profound change came over her. The curse subtly began to lift a lightness, returning to her spirit. Sir Gawain had delivered not just a relic, but hope, freedom, and a tangible proof of a love that defied all odds, a love willing to journey to the very edge of the known world and beyond for her sake. Number 3. Wearing a lady's token in battle or tournament. In the thunderous chaos of a medieval battlefield or the structured violence of a tournament list, a knight often carried a tangible symbol of his devotion to a lady. This was not merely a sentimental keepsake. It was a visible token, a specific item gifted by his beloved, worn openly on his armor or helm. It served as a constant reminder of his inspiration, a silent vow, and a direct challenge to his opponents. Token could be a scarf, a glove, a sleeve, or even a single ribbon, but its presence transformed the knight's combat into a personal act of tribute. Sir Ector de Maris, a valiant knight of King Arthur's court, famously wore a scarlet silk sleeve embroidered with a silver falcon, a gift from the Lady Elaine of Astolat, whenever he rode into the fray. The moment of receiving such a token was often charged with quiet significance. The lady would present it to her chosen knight, perhaps with a soft word of encouragement, a gentle smile, or a simple nod. It was a sign of her favor, her trust, and her acknowledgement of his devotion. For Sir Ector, Lady Elaine had presented him with the scarlet sleeve on the eve of a grand tournament. Her hands, delicate against his calloused ones, tied it carefully to his upper arm, over his mail, ensuring it was visible to all. The vibrant scarlet contrasted sharply with the dull gray of his steel, making it impossible to miss. The silver falcon, Elaine's personal emblem, shimmered against the silk, a silent message of her spirit accompanying him into battle. Once worn, the token became an extension of the knight's identity, a public declaration of his allegiance and the source of his courage. As Sir Ector rode into the lists, the scarlet sleeve streamed behind him in the wind, catching the eye of every spectator and every opponent. It told a story without words. This knight fights for the Lady Elaine. It was a psychological weapon, too. To defeat a knight wearing a lady's token was not just to defeat the man, but to symbolically diminish the lady's favor and the knight's devotion. This added a layer of personal stake to every blow struck and every maneuver executed. During the tournament, Sir Ector fought with renewed vigor, each thrust of his lance, each parry of his sword, fueled by the sight of the scarlet sleeve. He broke several lances, unhorsed 2 opponents and fought with such ferocity that the crowd roared his name. In one particularly fierce melee, a blow from an enemy knight's sword struck the very arm where the sleeve was tied. The silk was torn, a long gash marring its vibrant surface, but Sir Ector, though bruised, fought on his determination unwavering. The damaged sleeve became a badge of honor, a visible scar of his willingness to endure harm for the sake of his lady. The meaning of the token extended beyond mere inspiration. If a knight performed exceptionally well while wearing a lady's token, it brought honor to both of them. His victory was her victory. His renown reflected upon her. Conversely, if a knight was defeated or acted dishonorably while bearing such a token, it could bring shame to both. This made the act of wearing a token a heavy responsibility, an outward manifestation of an inner commitment. Sir Ector's triumphant performance, culminating in him winning the final joust, solidified not only his own reputation but also enhanced Lady Elaine's standing in the eyes of the court. His devotion had been publicly validated by his prowess. After the tournament, Sir Ector, still wearing the torn scarlet sleeve, rode directly to Lady Elaine's pavilion. He dismounted, and without a word he knelt before her, presenting the damaged sleeve. Lady Elaine, seeing the torn silk and the genuine weariness in his eyes, understood the depth of his effort and his unwavering courage. She reached out, gently touched the torn fabric, and then, with a tender gesture, she took the sleeve and pressed it to her lips. This simple, silent exchange spoke volumes, reinforcing the bond of devotion and admiration that had been forged in the heart of the lists. The token, once a simple piece of silk, had become a powerful symbol of their shared triumph and his profound, enduring commitment. Number 2. The art of courtly love, poetry, and song. In an era before mass media, when literacy was less widespread, the spoken and sung word held immense power. For a knight to truly express his devotion to a lady, especially in the refined and often complicated realm of courtly love, he turned to poetry and song. These were not casual ditties. They were intricate, highly stylized works, often performed publicly, but always with a specific lady as their muse. Troubadours and quatrains, skilled poets and musicians, were employed by knights to craft verses that would capture their lady's beauty, virtue, and their own undying passion, all within the strict conventions of courtly love. Sir Raimbout de Victories, a celebrated troubadour knight, composed numerous passionate canzos in honor of Beatrice, daughter of Boniface I of Montferrat, often performing them himself before the entire court. Composition of a courtly love poem or canzo was a meticulous process. It required a deep understanding of poetic forms, rhyme, schemes, and subtle metaphors. The language was often elevated, full of paradoxes and expressions of longing, suffering, and adoration. The knight would portray himself as the humble servant, utterly devoted, consumed by love, yet often unable to fully possess his lady due to her unattainable status, or the rules of courtly conduct. The lady, in turn, was elevated to an almost divine status, a source of all virtue and inspiration. Sir Raimbout would spend hours, sometimes days, laboring over his verses for Beatrice, choosing each word with exquisite care. He described her eyes as the stars that guide the mariner through the darkest night, and her presence as the bloom that brings spring to the wintered heart. His lyrics were intricate, weaving together themes of feudal loyalty and spiritual devotion. Once composed, the poem was set to music, often a haunting melody played on a lute, a harp, or a rebec. The performance was key. A knight would often perform the song himself, though sometimes a professional minstrel would be hired, lending their vocal talents to the heartfelt words. These performances usually took place during feasts, gatherings, or assemblies before an audience of nobles and courtiers. Public nature of the performance made the declaration all the more able. As Sir Rainbow would step forward, his lute in hand, a hush would fall over the hall. His voice, clear and resonant, would fill the space, every note, every phrase, a tribute to Beatrice. His gaze, though seemingly sweeping the room, would inevitably linger on her, making the personal public. The lyrics, while ostensibly about idealized love, often contained subtle hints or specific references that only the lady herself would fully understand. Particular flower, a shared memory, a unique turn of phrase. These were the secret codes woven into the song, meant to connect the performer directly to his muse. For Beatrice, Sir Rainbow often included lines about the silver river of Montferrat, a direct reference to her home, or spoke of a falcon's swift flight, knowing her love for the hunt. These personal touches made the grand public declaration feel intimately private. The other courtiers might appreciate the artistry, but Beatrice understood the true, deeper message. The impact of such a gesture was profound. For the lady, it was an immense honor, a public affirmation of her beauty, grace, and inspirational power. To be the subject of such exquisite poetry and music was a testament to her standing and desirability. It could also be a source of quiet pride, a secret joy that sustained her in a world where her choices were often limited. For Beatrice, listening to Rainbow's songs brought a blush to her cheeks, a subtle nod of her head, or a quiet smile, acknowledgments that fueled his poetic fire. For the other courtiers, it was a display of the knight's eloquence, his depth of feeling, and his adherence to the refined ideals of courtly love. Contributed to the complex social dance of the court, where declarations of love were both a source of entertainment and a reflection of social standing. The songs would be repeated, circulated, and sometimes even imitated, spreading the knight's renown as a lover and the lady's fame as a muse. Sir Rainbow's cantos for Beatrice were widely admired, solidifying his reputation as a great poet and a devoted knight. Through the art of courtly love poetry and song, hearts communicated across crowded halls, weaving narratives of longing and devotion that resonated throughout the age of chivalry, turning fleeting admiration into immortal verse. Number 1. Deeds of valor in chivalric combat. At the very core of chivalric romance lay the ultimate gesture, performing deeds of valor and engaging in chivalric combat in a lady's name. This was not a passive act of admiration, but a high-stakes demonstration of courage, skill, and unwavering devotion, often undertaken with the lady's token or inspiration. As the sole guide, a knight would enter the brutal reality of battle, or the formalized violence of a tournament, dedicating every swing of his sword, every thrust of his lance to his beloved. His success on the field of honor was a direct reflection of her inspirational power and his commitment to her. Sir William Marshal, one of the greatest knights of his age, famously fought countless tournaments and battles, always with the honor of his liege lady, Queen Eleanor, or later his wife Isabel de Clare, at the forefront of his mind. His legendary prowess was often attributed to the powerful inspiration of these noble women. The concept was simple, yet profound. A knight would explicitly declare that his valor, his strength, and his very life were offered up for his lady. This declaration might be whispered to himself before a charge announced by a herald at a tournament, or simply understood through the lady's colors he bore. For William Marshal, whether he was fighting in the lists of England or on campaign in France, the notion of living up to the ideals he held for Queen Eleanor's court, and later the devotion he bore for Isabel, propelled him. He would choose to stand in the thickest of the fray, take on the most formidable opponents, or undertake the most dangerous maneuvers, knowing that his bravery directly honored her. In the thunderous spectacle of a tournament, a knight's dedication was particularly visible. The crowd, the judges, and especially the ladies in the stands watched every move. A knight who broke multiple lances, unhorsed his opponents with skill, or won a melee through sheer endurance, brought immense honor to himself and by extension to his chosen lady. William Marshal, known for his incredible skill in the joust, would often wear a sleeve or a scarf from his lady, even if it was just a symbolic one, carefully placed within his gauntlet. During the tournaments he frequented, he would engage in what was essentially a controlled battle. He excelled at unhorsing opponents, capturing them for ransom, and demonstrating unparalleled horsemanship. Every victory was a public testament to his chosen lady's inspiring influence. Beyond the staged combat of the tournament, deeds of valor in real warfare carried even greater weight. A knight might lead a desperate charge, defend a key position against overwhelming odds, or undertake a perilous mission behind enemy lines, all in the service of his lord, but fueled by the devotion to his lady. Imagine Sir William leading a cavalry charge against a numerically superior foe. His armor was heavy, the cries of battle deafening, the ground slick with mud. But in his mind he would see the image of Queen Eleanor, or later Isabel, her grace, her dignity. This vision, this powerful inspiration, would drive him to push harder, to fight with a fury that seemed supernatural, turning the tide of battle. He was not just fighting for his king or his lands, he was fighting to prove himself worthy in the eyes of his beloved, to lay his accomplishments at her feet. One notable instance of this was during the great tournament of Lagny-sur-Marne in 1179. William Marshal, then a young knight seeking to make his name, was fighting alongside his Lord Henry, the young king, son of Henry II of England. It was a brutal affair, more like a real battle than a game. William, already renowned for his skill, engaged in fierce combat, unhorsing and capturing many opponents. Legend says he fought so fiercely that he was exhausted, his armor dented beyond recognition. His helmet was so battered that he couldn't remove it to eat or drink. Yet, he pushed through the pain and fatigue, fueled by the desire to prove his worth, not just to his king, but to the ladies watching. His valor at Lagny, recounted by chroniclers, was seen as a testament to his sheer will and the strength drawn from the ideals of courtly devotion. The willingness of a knight to risk life and limb, to endure suffering and pain simply to earn a smile or a nod of approval from his lady, underscored the profound emotional investment in chivalric love. It was a relationship built on admiration, inspiration, and ultimate sacrifice. A knight's deeds of valor in combat were not just about winning battles or prizes. They were about earning worthiness in the eyes of his lady, proving his courage, his strength, and his unwavering loyalty. The roar of the crowd, the clang of steel, the taste of victory, all were offered as tributes to the one who inspired such greatness, a silent, powerful declaration of a devotion forged in the crucible of conflict. Enduring throughout the age of chivalry,